Hey,
time.
everybody.
Oh, sorry.
It's caucus time.
It is. It's caucus time.
Back in person.
Oh man, back in person, and we're very distracted over here. We're talking about books and all kinds of stuff, and you just what can I say? You get lost in the world of books like we do. Literally, we sit amongst it every day, and it just happens. But welcome everybody. Thank you for being here. It's Thursday. It's noon.
It's caucus time.
And you're on the live stream. Of course, we will have the podcast up and the show notes and everything else tomorrow. Make sure you're subscribed at our Substack. Go to unauthorizedcaucus.com. You can also follow us on the socials on Twitter X, at our X Twitter.
X.com.
Twitter, like I said, and Facebook. And we're also over on Truth Social, although we don't use that one as much. But there's a placeholder there. So if you're a big truther, go make sure you follow us there and maybe poke us a little bit. We'll get more active. But we got a big one today and a lot of upcoming things that we're excited about. So
well, we should say our names.
It's
because,
there.
you
Yeah,
know, we might have new listeners. So.
That's true. Might have new listeners.
I'm Mason, and you are Ryan.
Yes, and my pronouns are I identify as a podcast host. It's several pronouns, but I did. By the way, did I? I don't know if I confessed to you yet. I saw Am I Racist?
Did you figure it out? Are you racist?
I don't know. I'm still confused. No, I'm kidding.
It didn't answer? Man, you should ask for your money back. You saw Am I Racist, or did it figure out if you were racist? Wow.
No, we saw it. We saw Am I Racist last week, 2 weekends ago. Mm-hmm. And it was pretty good. It was very, very good. Similar to What is a Woman?
I have only heard good things about it. Even from people that didn't like What is a Woman.
Really?
Or people that are kind of like skeptical of Daily Wire generally. Like, I have only heard good things about Am I Racist?
Well, I mean, the not doing any spoilers. I mean, if anyone saw What is a Woman, which you should at this point have by now, but I mean, the same shtick. He just lets people talk and bury themselves under nonsense and circular reasoning, and it's wild. So I feel like this one I didn't laugh as often as I did with What is a Woman, although I feel like the absurdity of the anti-racist movement is just a little bit more apparent and obvious. In the What is a Woman, when you get to the radical trans stuff, I feel like there are so many people who are still just they're either not sure what to think on some of these nuances that the left tries to bury under bad language, or they just don't understand the depth of how bad it is and how far back it goes and how deep it is now in society. So that one I felt like was more eye-opening. This one I think a lot more people are like, yeah, that's kind of a load of malarkey. I don't want to listen. But still, like, there are a bunch of race baiters who make their living off of this. Yeah. It's wild. And I love they even threw up the price tag, like over and over again. All the different people who come on as guests, they talk about how much they gave them to come on, like what the price was, the honorarium or whatever you want to call it. And you start to realize, like, all these people are just race grifters. It's just wild. It was well done. It was good.
I've heard people start comparing Matt Walsh to Sacha Baron Cohen now.
No, that's completely unfair. Because
I think it's kind of a similar shtick. Like it's not the same kind of jokes or even the same politics, but he's doing kind of what Sacha Baron Cohen did, but in a political way.
Yeah, I understand. Yes, he is to an extent. It's kind of a false interview, hidden camera thing. But unlike Sacha Baron Cohen, who is leaning into some absolutely wild character personality. Matt Walsh isn't really trying to hide who he is. Yeah. Like in this one, he had the really pitiful man bun wig and the get up that he based off of the one guy, and it was like that was funny. But he used his real name in a lot of these. Now I heard it like the interviews. Some of them they said, hi Matt, I'm Matt. I'm Matt. I don't know if he used his last name, but I'm under the impression that he did. Some of these people just live in their own bubble, and even like Robin DiAngelo, the author of White Fragility herself, had no idea who he was. And I look at it and I think as an advanced guy, as a former advanced guy for like candidates and stuff like this, did no one fact check any of this? Yeah. Like I know that we have, there's a working title for a documentary. They obviously put it to them as something different than what they ended up naming it, but that actually happens all the time. Right. We know that they got all the disclosures they needed signed. This guy, the Daily Wire has just one heck of a legal team. They've got to have some kind of lawyers. I can't believe their pants didn't get sued off. Yeah. But it was worthwhile. We still intend on trying to do a showing, which is obviously it's in the theaters right now still. The number, it got into the top 15 documentaries in box offices of all time I saw. Yeah, it had a banger of an open weekend apparently.
Wow.
So it did really well. But
that's pretty cool.
We'll talk about it more, and we'll do a showing maybe later this year. We'll figure something out.
I still got to watch it, so.
It was good. It was worthwhile. Yeah, that was my random addition. Do you have another random addition?
No.
No? All right. Well, let's dive right into it. The deep state.
They went to kill Trump.
And it's true. Well, they keep missing.
They keep missing.
They keep missing. And I say that at this point now with 2 assassination attempts, plus whatever the chemical thing was that went down in Tucson, Arizona, plus all of the other stuff, plus releasing the stinking bounty from Ryan Routh. You tell me that they're not complicit in this or trying to help it along, and I'll call you a liar.
Yeah.
It's just there's too much there for the common sense person to look and say the deep state is not involved in all of these efforts to stop Trump, whatever the cost. And this isn't even me trying to make some sort of savior out of Donald Trump. This is me just looking, going, well, my gosh, if you guys hate him that much, I kind of like him a little bit more. Who's radicalizing you? You are.
Yeah, exactly.
You people in the deep state. I don't know. It's just, we're in wild times.
Yeah, and it's interesting to kind of, I was thinking about this on my drive this morning of like the difference between the first shooter and Routh, where like the Crooks was like, I mean, very little known about him. Kind of like he seemed kind of like one of those like, we're not really going to know the full story of like why he did that and how he got into that situation probably until like 80 years from now when the documents are eventually released, unless Trump, really takes the hammer to the deep state, which God willing he will when he is elected. But like Routh kind of just shows to me the incompetence of the deep state with how easy it is to like tie him to all these different intelligence agencies and like how easy it is to track all his connections. Like it's like if you took a rabid dog and branded your name on it and then let it loose. Like it's so incredibly obvious, who this guy is, who he's connected to, and it's like obviously he was sent by somebody, or at least given the go-ahead by somebody. Because, I mean, I'm assuming that the deep state cleanup crews are, sponging through the internet right now trying to get rid of everything they can. But thankfully, X is a great place, and now there are a lot of people out there doing, it used to just be on 4chan where, like, private people were able to do CIA-level intelligence, but now people are doing it under their real names and faces because they can, and the tools are out there. So, we've been talking about some people like Mike Benz and stuff, but there's, like, this guy is so obviously a deep state tie-in. He was following lots of, like, CIA and, like, State Department people on his X account.
Yeah.
There was this one lady, I forgot her name, I was trying to find it, but one lady that seemed like she was his handler or something. And it's, like, not even that conspiratorial. Like, if you think about who this guy is, he's an American citizen that's like trying to get people from other countries to go fight in Ukraine. Like, even if you aren't attached to the CIA beforehand, trying to get, like, being an American, trying to get some foreigners to fight for other foreigners, like, the CIA is going to talk to you and be like, hey, like, let's work together if you have a common aim with us. So it's like that's obviously what would happen, but it seems like the rot runs deeper and he's been connected to them for longer. So yeah, I think it's comically obvious and it's even more comically obvious that, like, okay, the deep state is kind of just going mask off, like, yeah, we want to get rid of Donald Trump, which I think bodes well for the election. I think he's going to win, because why would they be trying to take him out otherwise? Why would the Department of Justice literally release a bounty to take out one of the presidential front runner? Like, that's insane. That's unheard of in American history.
Well, it is, and it actually goes against current FBI policy because they're not supposed to release, was it tokens? I forget the terminology, but they're not supposed to release tokens of importance from, killers, serial killers, would-be killers, would-be assassins, stuff like that. There's already a policy against this. It's not like this is inside normal. To release these kinds of things for the sake of public transparency or whatever they want to say.
Right.
This is literally against the standard policies and procedures of the FBI. But when you
think about how long it took to release the Nashville shooter manifesto.
Well, they still haven't officially. The Star got a hold of it.
Parts of it got leaked.
Yeah, parts of it got leaked, but
the
FBI still insists, for the sake of security, it shouldn't be released.
Or Stephen Paddock. Like, the public knows nothing about Vegas.
Right.
And the Mandela Bay. Like nothing.
The only thing we know is they've lied. They've lied about what was used.
But just a couple weeks later, they're like, here's this guy's letter to America.
But this is the thing. It's even more disingenuous than that. Because there are multiple, apparently, allegedly, supposedly, all of the cloaking. Let me cloak myself here in couched terms of I don't know. But there was a box that he left to someone that this letter came from. But there were multiple letters, among other random tools and ammunition and stuff like that. But there are multiple letters. Well, if he handed this to someone months ago, I think it was in North Carolina, I forget exactly where, I'm not sure quite it matters, in the sense that he handed this months ago, there were multiple letters, and this one says I failed. Well, that must mean there are other letters in the case that he succeeded. Unless the plan the whole time was for him to not actually, be successful in this assassination attempt, although it looked like he was set up to be able to do that. But there's multiple letters in there. But this letter has apparently multiple pages, and there's references to Iran and all kinds of stuff, and I don't actually buy the current line that we keep saying, oh, well, Iran is funding. I mean, I do think that Iran is behind a lot. Iran pretty much is funding all of the terrorist groups that are currently trying to kill Israel. At this point, that much seems to be apparently clear. Yeah. Hezbollah, Hamas, all of these things are sponsored by Iran. But as far as Iran trying to neutralize and destroy Donald Trump, maybe this just sounds like, I don't know, the deep state. I mean, this is there's multiple things, so we should increase funding to the Secret Service because there's threats against President Trump, former President Trump from Iran. I don't buy this. And also, I don't want your funding. I want accountability.
Right.
There's no need for funding. There's a need for leadership to be changed and challenged.
Right.
But they're only releasing part of something, and it happens to be the part where there's a bounty that $150,000 is going to find its way to someone's bank account if they do his job for him and finish it. We're at a point where I don't think you can, in any honest way, deny that the permanent state is involved in encouraging or fostering this.
Yeah. I
mean, they're kind of pulling back the veil of security and allowing it to happen already a couple of times, or almost. No. Yeah. There's involved. But that's not even the major point, today. That's just, this is, by the way.
The major point is this is going to happen again.
Well, it's going to happen again. But here's the premise of the discussion today. And you saw the headline. How far will the deep state go to keep Trump out of office? This is obviously a part of it. It's a part that's happening right now. There have been multiple attempts on his life. You can't convince me that this won't happen again or be allowed to happen again or whatever words you want to use between now and January 2025 when he takes over. On the path that we're going, there's no more electoral discussion to be had for today's conversation. I think Donald Trump wins. I think he wins in an electoral college landslide, a modern version of a landslide, 300 plus. And he may actually win the popular vote. It's possible. I'm seeing enough numbers that look like, depending on fraud, he might actually win the popular vote.
He's leading with Hispanic voters, too.
Oh, yeah.
Which that's unheard of for a Republican to be leading with, actually legitimately leading. Not like, hey, we're up to 20 from 10. More than 50%.
It's wild numbers, bigly wild numbers. But what interests me, by the way, also, they're not doing another debate. Well, Kamala wants to do another debate. But he says, no, they are going to do town halls with Univision. Trump's town hall is on October 8 in Miami. That's, 70% Hispanic population in Miami. This could be interesting. And of course, I'm not even going to get into the ins and outs of how Hispanic is such a garbage label that has been foisted upon people for no reason. But anyway, as far as modern voting demographics go, when they're talking about that stuff, he has wild leads in places that a modern Republican shouldn't. By all common knowledge of what we're doing here. So I think he wins the election. He wins it handily. So then the question is, between November 5 and January of 2025, what happens? Because the premise that I have, they've spent too long calling him literally Hitler, the biggest threat to democracy, a threat to the nation itself. They can't. What are they going to simply say? Oh, darn, we lost. Next time.
They're gonna.
They can't. They've set themselves up to not be able to do that. Or will they do that? And their population that follows them, the whole entirety of leftist voters, are just dumb enough to go along with it. And we still have to defeat him. Do you really think? First of all, is that an actual possibility that they'll just say, "Oops, darn, we'll do it better next time," and their people actually go along with it? No one's applying any logic to the situation, or is that off the table and not going to happen?
I think that it's hard to say, because I think that if they, it depends on how many of them are willing to go to, the absolute next level of like, we're suspending the election to save our democracy or something like that. Like that's what I see as like next level, or.
So there is no chance in your mind, for, option number one, off the table, that they just say, "Oopsie darn, we lost,"
I think
and
that if
just proceed with a presidential transition as normal.
I think that because I don't think that like the majority of Democrats, like Democrat politicians, would be willing to take that next level step. Like, even though they're the enemy in the political sense, I think that enough of them have enough sense about them to where that would be something that a lot of them would say at some point. But I do think that there are factions in the Democratic Party and the deep state that are ready and willing to, take that next level step. Whether it's what I just described with like suspending the election to save our democracy, or, more assassination attempts. I mean, it's hard to, predictions are silly. It's hard to make predictions because you're going to be wrong most of the time.
Well, sure.
So I'm very interested to see, how far they're willing to go, because a part of me thinks that they are going to pull out every single possible stop. Because Colonel Mills was talking with Ed on the Pro America report the other day about how we probably won't, like, there won't be an official winner of the election until January. That's his prediction, with how muddy the electoral system has gotten. Like,
right.
We're not going to. It's not even going to be like 2020 where it's going to be like, midnight, Trump has obviously won, and then we all wake up the next morning and it's like, turns out Biden won. It's like he thinks that it's going to be much more drawn out this time before they're able to say who won, even though it's. So I think Trump is going to win the election, but whether or not he's going to make it into the Oval Office.
Well, and that's the thing. I think Trump is going to win the election. Frankly, though, I think Trump won the 2020 election. Mm-hmm. Despite, fraud this time, he will win the 2020 election. Mm-hmm. But that's the real question: is will they seat him? Mm-hmm. And I mean, you're talking about, you don't think that am I understanding correctly? I'm not accusing you of word salad. You're not Kamala Harris. Heavens to Betsy, we know that's true. We just watched her MSNBC and oh my gosh, it's terrible. But I digress.
I have never worked at McDonald's.
Neither have I, and neither has she. So she did the fries. Anyway, I'm sorry, it's terrible. Oh my gosh, it was just terrible. So, am I interpreting correctly? What you're saying is, you don't think enough Democrat lawmakers are willing to go along with just suspending the election, suspending the system. Are you talking about before that, during that, or after that, the certification of the election? What do you mean? Well, and then am I correctly interpreting what you said?
I don't think the majority of them would be willing to, would be actively participating in doing something as drastic as like preventing Trump from being seated. But I think that if the deep state faction that would do that does do that, I think they'll go along. They'll go along.
See, and that's Jamie Raskin. Did you see this clip? Jamie Raskin actually talked about this. Congressman from Maryland's 8th District. You remember him from a lot of the Trump proceedings. He's one of the terrible ones in Congress for lying and telling the truth. But I saw there's a clip of him scooting around, and this is a real clip. I forget what he was. He was having a conversation at a bookshop somewhere, and it's literally him discussing, basically denying the peaceful transfer of power. Let me pull this up and just let you listen to it yourself, and then we'll go from there. Here, let me get this up. Sorry if there's any cross bleed on the audio for a second.
Into the Constitution. What can be put into the Constitution can slip away from you very quickly. And the greatest example going on right now before our very eyes is Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, which they're just disappearing with a magic wand, as if it doesn't exist, even though it could not be clearer what it's stating. And so, they want to kick it to Congress. So it's going to be up to us on January 6, 2025, to tell the rampaging Trump mobs that he's disqualified. And then we need bodyguards for everybody in Civil War conditions, all because the 9 justices, not all of them, but these justices who have not many cases to look at every year, not that much work to do, a huge staff, great protection, simply do not want to do their job and interpret what the great 14th Amendment means. And I'm glad that Sherilyn's creating her new center so we can bring that
unmuting myself. So what he's talking about is, yeah, the 14th Amendment, he's disqualified, and if the Supreme Court's not going to do it, then they're going to kick it to us, and we're going to have to be the ones to do it. To me, that sounds like holding the possibility open. It doesn't matter what the votes are on November 5.
Yeah.
Congress has a duty to say, no, I'm not certifying that election because he can't be seated because blah, 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 14th Amendment, blah, 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 blah.
Which ironically would be them doing exactly what they're accusing Trump of trying to do in 2020.
Right.
Which is...
Well, exactly. And I mean, that's...
The irony is
and that's the thing. The irony is lost on their people because their people don't even know what the word irony means because they're so just wrapped up and enveloped in this hatred of Trump, in going along with whatever it is that they're told. Like, we really are in a time where I have a very difficult time trying to pinpoint or predict or understand what's going to happen because the woke mind virus is just... It follows no logic. It follows no emotional intuition. It follows nothing. Like, they just literally do whatever the thing is. So whenever the power players at the top of this Marxist pyramid or whatever it is, or at the bottom, whatever you should say, whenever they say, oh, well, we're going to do this, we're going to say this, we're going to go this direction, you and everyone else in the world who's still thinking with your brain is left saying, but wait a minute, but like the hordes literally have just gone along. And I know some of these people, it really is that nonsensical, but I look at it and say, well, it's just wild. Like, there's no way to predict even what the leaders are going to do and say because they can do and say anything and get a huge majority of you all to go along with them. Not a majority of the country, but a majority of the people who subscribe to this new ideology. They'll just go with it. So you look at something like this and say, yeah, some members of Congress are already preparing to be the ones to say, no, we won't seat him because he's not qualified. I don't care what anyone else says.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm over-interpreting it. And, of course, maybe Jamie Raskin is mouthing off at some library somewhere when he wouldn't actually get up behind a podium at the U.S. House of Representatives and say that because it's a little too far-fetched and there's not enough of them yet. But I see that and I say, members of Congress are ready to be complicit. So on that count,
Yeah.
And that's not even accounting for the nameless, faceless bureaucrats that none of us know, none of us see. Which is a whole separate, that's a whole separate issue to get into.
Yeah, and I mean they are out there too. Those are the ones that fortified the election in 2020.
Right.
It's just kind of scary because who knows what they will do. They'll probably try that as best they can. They will probably, there's going to be more attempts on Donald Trump's life. Even if he gets into office, like they're going to keep coming after him.
Oh, sure, and that's the thing.
So that means once he needs to go no mercy, scorched earth.
Yes.
And disrupting the deep state, and he doesn't have to worry about re-election. He needs to know, and I think he knows what his mission is because he's talked about it before. He's like, yeah, I could have retired by now. I could have just been on a yacht. I am wealthy beyond belief. I could be just having the time of my life in my old age right now, but instead I am, I'm doing this. And so that means he's got to really do it. Like, he's got to decide, okay, I have nothing to lose. Like, I'm going to save this country.
Well, this is, let me back up then just a shade and say this. And by the way, folks, feel free to chime in. The chats are pretty quiet today, but you can change that. I know this is dark stuff that we're talking about, but it's the reality of where we are.
He needs to dissolve the FBI.
Yeah, what I was going to say is this kind of brings us to the question of, so if Congress, which by the way, if you want to back up a second and let me give you some context. If you want to look this up, head over to, where is it, presidentialtransition.org. You can find a bit of a timeline to understand what's going on. If you go to presidentialtransition.org, this is the Center for Presidential Transitions, it'll show you a 2024 timeline. This is all according to the Presidential Transition Act of 1963. And then you'll see they've been doing stuff now. Now, this is how it's supposed to work. But if you go and look at this, the General Services Administration, and a government agency you've likely never heard of, but the GSA is part of the alphabet soup of the permanent administrative state that just sits there. They've been working on this since November of last year. There are different benchmarks they're supposed to meet, where there's a transition team, there's the Transition Coordinating Council. 6 months before the election, they do this, and then between August and November, after the nominating conventions, but through the presidential election, they're going to do these things. And they've got benchmark. No later than September 1, the GSA enters memorandums of understanding the eligible candidates regarding support. There is so much happening right now from the three-letter agencies that you and I don't even know about. Normally, the way it's supposed to work is this works behind the scene, and it makes sure that a new team coming in, old team going out, the country continues to run. But when you look at this, you see that we are rife with possibilities of people meddling in the system, not doing their job, not providing correct information, and tinkering. And then you get all the way to January of 2025, and you realize, just like, well, think about this for a second. People continue to want to complain about Mike Pence overseeing January 2021. Now, I really don't care to relitigate that, and frankly, I might disagree with some of what Congress did, but also the states wouldn't check and challenge. What do you think about that, by the way, the whole thing? That should, in January of 2021, on the record, you, Mason Mohan, should Congress have just denied a bunch of states' electoral slates that were sent in? Or was that a problem that wouldn't have necessarily fixed anything because states didn't want to fix it and there were so many other layers? And was it all Mike Pence's fault, or is there a lot more to it than that and it's more nuanced?
I mean, everything's more nuanced.
I think so too.
So it's it's Mike Pence has he should have done more. He should have been loyal, but it's not like he could have single-handedly fixed it. Right,
and that's one of my number one problems whenever I hear this. Sure, fine, hate on Mike Pence, but what was he single-handedly going to do?
Yeah, well, the hate is well-deserved.
Yeah. Part of me says it wouldn't have fixed anything. There are more problems in more places that we should have directed our hate the last 4 years.
Well, but the hate is justified because he allied with the deep state and the Uniparty in that moment. Like, even though he couldn't have fixed it, he played along.
Yeah. Well, anyway, the point being, I'm not here to relitigate Mike Pence.
Yeah.
But think about who that is this time. The one who's running, Kamala Harris. She will be the one sitting in the chamber, supposedly in an honorary position, overseeing the whole thing, even though it's not her job to say yes, no, this, that. If you're mad at Mike Pence for not doing anything, do you think Kamala Harris is going to do nothing? Do you think that Congress at that point, under her leadership, the one who they're counting votes for, if it's not her, do you think she's going to behave in a way that's actually helpful? No, now she's going to tinker. She will tinker, and so will all of the Congress people under her. Now, this is being talked about everyone. Politico talks about, here's a headline from Politico. Kamala Harris knows exactly what she will do on January 6, 2025. But this reminds me a lot, by the way, of Katie Hobbs. You want to talk about this, Arizona, the new governor in Arizona, overseeing her own election in 2022. It has all the hallmarks that remind me of that, which is just terrible. But, I mean, federal agencies are ramping up efforts to prepare for a presidential transition. This is from the government executive. We go on and on and on, and when you start to read into these, what we're seeing is, you remember the New York Times article after 2020, we fortified the election, they say. If you start looking at all of the actual legacy media and all of the different pieces of that are talking, they're kind of saying the same thing already. They are echoing, yes, we are ready. We are ramping up and ready to defend democracy in these tumultuous times. Well, which version? Your version of democracy? Because that's not a democracy of any kind.
Right.
But it's this stuff is going on right now actively behind the scenes, and they're already preparing people. I saw that CBS News. This was just last month. Biden says he's not confident at all that there would be a peaceful transition of power if Trump loses. I feel the same way, but the opposite direction. I don't feel like there's going to be a peaceful transition of power if Trump wins.
Right.
We're both worried about the same problem, but not really, because we the people aren't the problem.
I'm thinking about one of the, there was the American Revolution, the War for Independence, but then there was another revolution afterwards that's one of the most revolutionary moments of American history, but we don't really think of it that way. And that is when we went from one president to another. When Washington, ended his presidency and John Adams became president. That moment was revolutionary because that's really unheard of in human history, for there to be a peaceful transfer of power from one ruler to another, where everybody agrees on what happened and there is no bloodshed in that transition. Like, that is an anomaly in world history and the way that government works and the way the government has always worked. and we've been living in exceptional times. You know, the fact that we are able to peacefully transition from one ruler to another is a historical aberration. That is not the norm, and you know, and I fear that we will lose this cycle. That America will lose the ability to make these peaceful transitions, because and Trump really exposed that for a while these peaceful transitions are from one uniparty apparatchik to the next.
Right.
Or I think it was the IDW. You know, I think he's a physicist or a biologist or something. Brett Weinstein, or no, it was Eric Weinstein.
Eric Weinstein.
Yeah, where he was talking about, and he's not really on the right at all. Really, I disagree with him on his like political opinions, but he did have a pretty good assessment of this, of where like the system is set up to where both sides will have somebody friendly to the regime, like where, you know, they're playing both sides, where both the Republican and the Democrat will be, you know, somebody that's going to be good for the regime, and Trump is not that at all. Trump is a total break from the norm, and that is why we are seeing some of the most tumultuous times, because America actually elected a president. You know, the people exercise their will and put somebody that they chose into power rather than somebody chosen for them, than somebody chosen by the kingmakers, as Phyllis would say. You know, so.
Well, so then this plays in. One of the things we saw the first Trump administration was problems across the board. So kind of moving to solutions. Let's say Trump gets in, he gets seated in power. January 2025, as tumultuous as it may be, another fedsurrection or whatever we have to go through and deal with. Trump gets into power. He's there. We don't have martial law and military in the streets, or who knows, all the crazy things you could come up with that could go on. We get to the other side of it now. Trump really does need to just burn through the agencies, clean house, shut stuff down. The will to do that is, well, we all hope that it's there, but I remember Trump's first term. And he made a lot of concession appointments and hires to the more establishment side of the Republican Party. And I think he was too trusting or too unknowing or whatever it is, and there's got to be different changes this time. Do you think he's capable of that? Do you think he's learned? And do you think a second Trump administration would be a bunch of people who just are ready to burn out the system of this rot?
Well, I mean, I think that I think he said on an interview maybe like a month ago, where he was like, yeah, I didn't know who people were, and I was, you know, listening to people, and I picked a lot of bad people, but now I know who everyone is. You know, and I mean, I do think he's learned. He was president for 4 years. I think he learned, you know, who some of the negatives were. And my hope is that he will correct course. And
do you tend to trust RFK Jr. or that kind of person to be an outsider in this situation, or do you think he's good on a few things, but not necessarily trustworthy at this level of being against the permanent state?
I mean, I think that RFK Jr. would be trustworthy to, you know, work for Trump to hack off parts of the permanent state.
Sure. I mean, not that he's the one who's going to take on the whole thing, but, you know, do you think he really sees the problem of the permanent state, or is he just...
Well, I think he sees the problem of the intelligence agencies, as well as the pharmaceutical agencies. So, like, this, which you know, as far as deep state goes, I don't think that, you know, biotech and pharma are like in control. I think they have a lot more power than they should, and I think it's important that they be limited.
Know. Tony Fauci ruined my life a pretty good amount 4 years ago.
Yeah, okay, that's a good point. But
yeah.
I
see,
think
that's
a much bigger mainstay of deep state power is the intelligence agencies, which RFK is ready and willing to attack there too.
Well, and frankly, on the health side as well, quote unquote health, excuse me, on the, you know, CDC and HHS and everything side as well, I think that's one of the other ones he understands very well and correctly who these people are, what hacks they are, that they shouldn't have power. And I think that's one of the biggest axes he would have to grind against Trump, was Trump's 2020 response and letting Tony Fauci, you know, have more influence and power. So I kind of wondered, did you actually, they talked about this, Larry Elder, at the event where RFK sat down at the Tucker Live thing, Larry Elder was there and asked him this question. Did you ever see that clip? And about specifically, what about Trump a second time around? Do you think Trump's actually going to do better with people? Let me pull that up, because I did save that clip here as well, and I think it's worth listening, because it's this very question. Okay, so we need to do a better job than the first term. Does he know that? Does he know how to do that? Do we have people lined up to be able to do that? This is a couple of minutes, but take a listen and tell me what you think.
Speaking of President Trump, you've endorsed him for a number of reasons, but he did give us Operation Warp Speed. To what degree do you hold him culpable for succumbing to the fear you've talked about?
Hold on a minute. Let's try that again. I know. It's there. Where is it? Show me. No, you're not going to show me. All right, it's going to be a pain in the rear now, is it?
Speaking of President Trump, you've endorsed him for a number of reasons, but he did give us...
Okay, well, maybe this clip doesn't want to go because...
the deep state is interfering.
I was about to say the deep state is interfering. They know. They know. Because he actually has a pretty interesting answer that I think is more honest than I would have expected. And I mean, essentially what he says is the same thing that I think we've heard Trump say before. Yeah, basically, yes, he is. Trump is aware of the problems that we had the last time, and he's ready to do something different because he understands the necessity of doing something different. All right, maybe we have it this time. Let's try this again.
Speaking of President Trump, you've endorsed him for a number of reasons, but he did give us Operation Warp Speed. To what degree do you hold him culpable for succumbing to the fear you've talked about?
Well, I absolutely hold him culpable, but here's what, and for a lot of other things, that I disagreed with in the first Trump administration. I didn't like seeing Scott Gottlieb cash in at FDA and Alex Azar running HHS. And, oil lobbyists running the Interior Department, coal lobbyists running EPA, telecommunication lobbyists running the FCC, et cetera. I talked to President Trump at length about this, and he said, look, when I got elected in 2016, I didn't know how to govern, and to tell you the truth, it was kind of surprising that we won the election. And he said, I was immediately inundated by lobbyists and business people, and they were all saying, you appoint this guy, appoint that guy, appoint that guy. And he said, I did it, and I wish I hadn't. And he understands that Scott Gottlieb was cashing in, and he did a $100 billion favor for Pfizer, and then went back to work for Pfizer on his board of directors. And so I think that President Trump has said to me that we're going to do something different this time, and that's why he launched the transition team 5 months before he takes power. The last time he did his transition team, he started in January. He's now launched it. I'm on it. Tulsi's on it. Donald Jr. is on it. And, I had an impression that Donald Jr. was kind of a lightweight. But I've gotten to know him, and he's exactly the opposite of that. He's very thoughtful, he's really well-informed, and he understands who the bad guys are. He does not like the neocons. He does not like the constant wars. He does not. He wants to restore public health. He loves the environment. He loves the rivers and the streams and the waterways, and he wants to protect those things. And I have nothing but respect for him, and there's a lot of really, really good energy that is part of this transition team now. So
what do you think of that?
That's encouraging to hear.
Do you I hear this, and on certain issues, which again, Larry Elder just issued one of the main challenges, Operation Warp Speed, dude. This is one of your big things that you would be critical of. Do you hold him accountable for that? Do you hold him responsible? Yes, I do, but I also think that he's going to do better this time. And out of anyone who doesn't need to say that and suck up to President Trump, it's Robert Kennedy Jr., who doesn't really seem to care about sucking up to anyone. So I look at something like this, and I think that we really actually may be set up for a much different version 2.0. Trump 2.0 is going to be pretty interesting. Now, so, I mean, I'm holding my hopes in check that he's going to, like, completely gut the ATF, remove the Department of Education from existence at the federal level, and a few of these other key things. But maybe some big strides, because, you know, term one, good things happened, but there was also a lot of this where I'm like, man, we didn't do hardly anything. Like, you didn't even scratch the surface.
Yeah.
Which would be explained by I didn't know what I was doing.
Himself with much better people.
Yeah.
Like, I mean,
I would agree with that.
Vance, I think, is like Vance was my dream vice president pick, which is why I didn't think he was going to get picked. But
I remember you locking that in before he got picked, but we'll give it to you this time. I'm going to have to search the tapes for that prediction.
He really was. No, I don't think I predicted it on air because I thought it was a pipe dream. But I think that Vance is somebody that is willing to, you know, kind of take American politics to the next level. And, you know, engage, like, I think he understands that, like, okay, you need the political will and you need executive action to make things happen. You know, looking at his influences, that's unsurprising. And as well as Elon Musk, like, Elon Musk being offered a role in the government, because I just finished his biography, the Walter Isaacson biography last week, and the last big chunk of that is about the Twitter takeover, because that was you know, that was happening towards, you know, the end of when Isaacson was writing. But just like he fired like 85 to 90% of the people at Twitter. Like, he got in there and he was like, okay, a lot of people aren't doing anything. There's like, authority is chopped up in a very bizarre way. Like, nobody's really in control here. Nobody really knows what's going on. There's a lot of dead weight here, and nothing that y'all are doing is fixing any of the problems that this platform faces. So he was like, okay, then I'm just gonna, you know, chop off these unnecessary limbs and make things efficient, make things work. You know, and I think that philosophy is exactly what's needed.
It's amazing how none of us notice anything as Twitter users. Nothing changed.
Yeah, well, in fact, things got better.
Stuff started getting better, and it got added to.
Yeah, fewer bots, less censorship. Like, it's been good. So but that's the exact philosophy we need in the government. And so, you know, as Trump and Elon get closer to one another, and, you know, they toy with the idea of Musk having a big role in the next administration, I think that could I mean, that's what's needed. I think that, you know, Elon Musk needs to be given like a temporary, you know, full sovereignty for like a week, just to chop off parts of the federal government and completely dissolve them and annihilate them into non-existence, just completely throw them into the void. And I think that American society would start healing, that we would start unlocking the future if we did that we could actually see our nation not just become great again, but greater than it's ever been before. I think that's a possibility, but the powers that be are so entrenched, and they do not want to give up on the power and the money and the comfort that they have, and as well as the, you know, ideological mission that they're on, that, you know, I think they will go to very great lengths to defend themselves from Donald Trump. So, I mean, Trump might need a private military. He should phone up Eric Prince and, like, have his own, you know, Praetorian Guard. I think that's important.
Yeah. Well, let me. I agree. By the way, did you see the, you know, because it was discussed, the potential that Elon Musk would oversee some sort of Department of Government Efficiency?
Yeah, Doge.
DOGE. If you don't know the internet memery, then go check the internet memery. There's databases for that kind of thing. Let me ask you your opinion on one more thing, because I tend to agree with you. And all of this is, that section of the conversation is if Trump gets into power, which I don't even know how to predict the level of shenanigans, because, like, honestly, you look at it, and they could, you know, thinking about between the election and January 2025. So Joe Biden dies. Joe Biden is incapacitated. Whatever it is, Kamala Harris ascends to the president, you know, role of president of the United States. Some other sort of national catastrophe or emergency. You saw the FBI whistleblower this morning talking about the fact that, or was it today or was it yesterday? Like, he told Americans to pray, stock up on ammo, and 3 to 4 months of food, because the FBI is. You haven't seen this?
No, I haven't seen this.
He says what? An FBI whistleblower in the weaponization committee said that the agency is out of control. He urged Americans to vote, arm themselves, stock up on 3 to 4 months of food, and pray. That was literally, this is Marcus Allen, is an FBI whistleblower that came before the, before the Weaponization Committee in the House yesterday. Yesterday, I think it was. And it's wild. So people are seeing stuff like this, and I look and say, well, if the deep state is already trying to pull back the curtain of protection and allow someone to take out Trump, and then they're fomenting these, oh, look, it might be Iran, it might be Iran, it might be Iran. Maybe Joe Biden doesn't disappear and Kamala Harris, or maybe he does. Maybe Trump doesn't disappear, but some sort of attack happens, quote unquote attack, on the United States, some sort of disaster, catastrophe, the grid goes down, the whatever goes down, and after the election, because I don't know if they're ever, I don't think they're going to suspend the election. I think they're going to fight the election with fraud as hard as they can.
Yeah.
But if they lose between then and January, there's all sorts of things, all kinds and all manner of crazy harebrained things that could happen that they could instigate or allow that would call for drastic changes and reforms. That's one of the last things I was going to ask. Did you see the new amendment that's being proposed? 2 Republicans, 2 Democrats. Manuel Cleaver here on the western side of the state in Missouri is one of them. But it's a new amendment it's addressing the House of Representatives and having a new constitutional amendment that would provide continued representation in a mass casualty event. Because we don't have
This is
okay.
real?
Yeah, this is real. Here's right here.
This isn't on like IlluminatiConfirmed.com. Like,
no. Well, first of all, I'm looking at the Washington Post and I'm looking at American Military News, and then I've got it here. This is I'll put this out there and we'll go down. So this is Kilmer. Where's he from? Derek Kilmer from Washington State, Democrat from Washington State, has proposed a new constitutional amendment. He got Brad Wenstrup and William Timmons, Republicans from Ohio and South Carolina, and then he got Emanuel Cleaver, a Democrat from here in Missouri, to support this, to co-sign with him. And this would require each member of the House to give at least 5 names from their political party to their state's governor that would be used to determine an interim appointee who would be selected within 10 days of a representative's death. That appointee would serve until a special election could be held. You know, this happens in the Senate, but we never see this in the House.
Yeah.
There's a provision for this in the Senate, but we're talking about 6-year terms, and it usually takes 3, 4, 5 months at least to get a special election put together. So in House districts just remain vacant. The Senate, someone gets appointed, and they do a special election or fills out the term or something like that. So this is the House Committee on Administration. A subcommittee was talking about this. They were urging Congress to pass something like this because they're saying violent domestic terrorist attack attempted to assassinate Republican members of Congress. We remember this from the baseball game. What do we do? Like 3 to 4 months is a long time. The sponsor of the bill even said that. We've seen a 300% increase, Derek Kilmer said, in threats against members over the last 7 years, according to Capitol Police, in an environment where we've seen a growing tendency toward political violence. The baseball practice he referenced again. You can literally flip a majority for 3 to 4 months, which I think is a frightening incentive for political violence. So you want to talk about what this means, and I mean, again, scarred by political violence, lawmakers plan for possible mass casualty event. This is the Washington Post. This continuity amendment from Kilmer, I think that's what they're calling it, the continuity amendment that they're putting forward. I see stuff like this and I have to say, okay, so if a constitutional amendment's being put forward for this, the UN this week just finished their Summit of the Future where they laid out a plan, the Pact for the Future, and there's literally a plan in there. If you go read the Pact for the Future, we're going to talk about this next week, actually. You're out next week. Andrew Mueller is going to come on and talk about this because he and Alex Newman were there at the UN in New York talking about this. And the Pact for the Future includes like a martial law takeover plan in the case of mass casualty, like Black Swan type event. It could be a new pandemic, something like that. And then you start to see this. All of a sudden, you're looking at it going, yep, the field of possibilities is wide open for something that could happen. Now, this is, of course, not just going to pass right now. They're proposing a new amendment, which means it's got to pass both houses. It has to be signed. That has to be ratified by the states. There's no way I don't think they could get that done by January. There's not even state legislatures in right now. It would take a while to call them back and figure it out. But I look at some of these things and say, okay, they really are kind of lining up pieces to insert people of their own choice outside of elections. So what are we going to do between election and transition of power, the handing over. I have, at this point, all the questions in the world and no confidence whatsoever that any of these things is even remotely close to predictable in the next, 4 months. So, I don't know. I say 4 months. It's less than that, but still.
Yeah.
Anyway, so the continuity amendment was off your radar? You hadn't seen it yet?
No, I hadn't seen either of these two things.
Okay.
I got links open now, so I got to look at those.
Yeah, we got a bit. The FBI, man, when the FBI whistleblower says you just need to pray and stock up on food, it's like, aren't you people there for that?
Yeah.
What's the point? Oh my goodness. Okay, well, I hate to just have a depressing episode, but that's what's on our mind.
Get ready.
Well, we need to be very acutely aware of all the possibilities. And I'm not just saying that because you need to, like the FBI says, get food and hunker down in your basement. What I mean is as we the people, as people who are going out and getting everyone out to the polls to vote in November, you and I have to be activated in our brains as citizens to understand all the possibilities that are coming our way. Even though we're not the ones in office, you're picking the people who go. So you got a chance here ahead of the election, when your representatives are most, attentive to the voice of the people right before an election. Now's the time for you to take these things, read them, digest them, and then spit questions back out at these folks, because now's the time when they're paying attention. More than ever before, more than any other time of the year, right before an election, they're paying attention. You can start to ask governors, your congressmen, the potential of a Senate candidate, questions about this. Hey, what do you think? What do you know about this? What are you going to do to make sure that the Constitution is followed and these people don't just go extra constitutional? Now's the time to look at all of the field of possibilities, read up on it, educate yourself, and then go and start demanding accountability even before November 5th of the people you know who are going to listen. Mm-hmm. Because at the end of the day, you and me, Mason, and everyone listening or watching, we're not going to be standing in the Capitol building in January of 2025. That's certainly not going to be allowed again. Yeah. It's not going to happen. And we weren't the first time either. Maybe some of you were. We weren't. But you're going to have representatives who are there, and they need to be not surprised like Mason is about some of these issues today. I'm just kidding. I'm sorry. I'm using you as an example. But
no, that's a good point.
That's the action item. Is you need to think about and know about these things, and it's not some sort of doomsday, gloom day, go and buy another box of ammo and a crate from, the freeze-dried food company. No, it's go and read more about it, find out what's being said, mm-hmm. Go watch the hearing with the whistleblower, read the continuity amendment that's being proposed, and then start asking questions of the people who are going to be there in the room. That's the action item step for stuff like this, because the government has been weaponized against us already. Mm-hmm. So the question is how much more and to what extent once Donald Trump runs away with the election on November 5, which is absolutely about to happen, I believe electorally and potentially with the popular vote. So what are they going to not do? I don't think they'd stop at anything at this point. My imagination runs wild, and it's not really that imaginative anymore because they're just saying it in the news.
Yep.
So that's what I got. Well, on that happy note, go and visit our sponsor. Make sure you get over there, trexinc.com. Use promo code Caucus30. Get some sweet stuff. Hoodies. It's hoodie season. It's getting a little chilly here in the Midwest. I know we got some high 70s, but Hurricane Helene, which we are watching very closely. Do you guys have any family in Florida or anything? We've got, of course, Alex Newman is down in the Florida area. He's over on the Atlantic side. And then Andrew and his wife are on the Panhandle side. I don't think anyone is directly in harm's way, but that's getting pretty messy with the storm surge. So obviously we'll have a lot of thoughts and mindfulness and prayerfulness toward Florida and Georgia residents as this sweeps up. And then it comes toward us. So that brings cold air, though, which means you need a hoodie, which means you need to go to trexinc.com. Use Caucus30, get a big discount on a pretty nice hoodie, maybe another couple of coffee mugs so that you can just double mug it, triple mug it. You never know. It's something that you might need. So I think that's it. That's it for us today. And that's it. Anything else to add for the good of the people, for the good of the order?
Caucus time is over.
Caucus time is over. Folks, we'll see you you won't. I will. I'll see you next week.
And I'll see you in 2 weeks.
And hopefully you'll go and subscribe at unauthorizedcaucus.com in between. Make sure you catch the podcast and notes tomorrow. Have a good day, have a good day. Have a good week, everyone. We'll talk to you next one.